Tonight we're covering a significant change that will affect how millions of Americans shop and how goods cross our borders. As of this morning, Friday, August 29, 2025, a long-standing rule that allowed small packages from other countries to enter the United States tax-free has come to an end. The Trump administration has officially eliminated the de minimis trade exemption for all countries. This means that items you order online from overseas, even if they cost very little, will now be subject to new taxes and fees. This policy shift is one of the most substantial changes to U.S. trade rules in years, and it promises to have a ripple effect across the entire economy, from the largest shipping companies to the smallest online shoppers. This isn't a minor adjustment. For years, packages valued under $800 could be mailed directly to your doorstep without any import duties. That era is now over. The administration has described this move as a critical step to level the playing field for American businesses, protect national security, and generate substantial new revenue for the country. It follows an earlier decision in May to remove this same exemption for packages coming from China and Hong Kong. Now, the policy has been expanded to cover the entire globe, fundamentally altering the landscape of international e-commerce. The change is immediate and affects nearly every foreign product you might consider buying. The implications are vast and will unfold in the coming weeks and months. For consumers, it could mean higher prices and longer waits for packages. For businesses both here and abroad, it means navigating a new and more complex customs process. And for the government, it represents a bold strategy to tackle issues ranging from illegal drug trafficking to the flood of counterfeit goods that have been entering the country unchecked. This isn't just a story about taxes, it's a story about American jobs, public safety, and the future of global trade in an increasingly digital world. Understanding this change is crucial for every family and business. Over the next several sections, we will break down exactly what this policy means for you. We will explore what the old rule was, who it helped, and what the new system looks like. We will also examine the government's stated goals and look at the potential positive and negative consequences of this sweeping decision. The goal here is to provide a clear, straightforward explanation of a complex issue that will touch the lives of nearly everyone. From the click of a mouse to the knock on your door, the way America gets its goods is undergoing a profound transformation, and we'll guide you through it. So, what exactly was this rule that has now been eliminated? It was called the de minimis exemption. The term de minimis is a Latin phrase that essentially means too small to be meaningful. In the context of trade, it referred to a value threshold below which goods could be imported into the United States without having to go through the formal customs entry process and without being subject to duties or taxes. Since 2016, that threshold was set at a surprisingly high $800. This meant that a single package with a declared value of $799 could be shipped from anywhere in the world directly to a U.S. consumer, duty-free. This rule was originally designed to make international trade simpler and more efficient. The thinking was that it wasn't worth the time and expense for U.S. Customs and Border Protection to inspect and process every single low-value item that came into the country. Raising the threshold from $200 to $800 in 2016 was intended to facilitate the growing world of e-commerce, making it easier for Americans to buy goods from foreign sellers. It allowed for faster shipping and lower costs, as packages could bypass the complex and often slow formal customs clearance procedures that apply to larger, commercial shipments. Essentially, it created an express lane for small international orders. The system was straightforward for consumers. When you ordered a product from an overseas website, perhaps a piece of clothing, an electronic gadget, or a specialty cosmetic, the foreign seller would ship it directly to you. As long as the value listed on the package was under $800, it would typically pass through customs with little to no delay or extra cost. This convenience fueled a massive boom in cross-border online shopping. It allowed American consumers to access a global marketplace right from their living rooms, with the assurance that the price they saw online was the final price they would pay, without any surprise taxes or fees upon arrival. However, what started as a measure for convenience grew into what critics have called a massive loophole. The rise of giant e-commerce platforms based in other countries, particularly in China, turned this trickle of small packages into a torrent. These companies built their entire business models around shipping millions of individual low-cost items directly to U.S. consumers, all while taking advantage of the $800 duty-free rule. As we will see, this had profound consequences not only for competing American retailers, but also for the government's ability to monitor what was actually inside these billions of packages entering the country each year. The rule intended for simplification had become a superhighway for unchecked imports. The primary beneficiaries of the $800 de minimis rule were, without a doubt, international e-commerce giants and the American consumers who shopped on their platforms. Companies like Shein and Temu, which specialize in fast fashion and low-cost consumer goods, leveraged this exemption to great effect. Their business model depended on shipping a high volume of individual orders directly from factories or warehouses in other countries to homes across the United States. By keeping the value of each package under the $800 threshold, they avoided import tariffs that their American competitors, who import goods in bulk, were required to pay. This gave them a significant price advantage in the marketplace. Online shoppers in the US also reaped the benefits, enjoying access to an unprecedented variety of products at incredibly low prices. The de minimis rule meant that the sticker price was the final price. There were no surprise customs fees or taxes waiting for them when the package arrived. This convenience and affordability fueled a surge in cross-border shopping, as Americans could buy everything from electronics and clothing to home goods and toys directly from foreign sellers. For many families on a budget, these platforms provided an affordable alternative to domestic retail, making the de minimis exemption a popular, if little understood, consumer perk. Beyond the major e-commerce platforms, countless smaller foreign businesses also relied on the duty-free rule. Independent artisans, specialty food producers, and niche manufacturers around the world could reach the massive American market without needing a US distributor or having to navigate the complexities of American import laws. Platforms like Etsy and eBay hosted many such international sellers who could ship their unique products directly to US buyers. This fostered a global marketplace for small entrepreneurs, giving them a direct line to American customers that would have been impossible without the simplicity afforded by the de minimis exemption. It was a lifeline for small global enterprises. Finally, international shipping and logistics companies also benefited enormously from the boom in de minimis shipments. The explosion in the number of small parcels crossing the border created a massive new revenue stream for postal services and commercial carriers like DHL, FedEx, and UPS. These companies developed specialized services to handle the high volume of direct-to-consumer international packages. The logistics of moving billions of small items around the globe became a major industry in itself. The entire supply chain, from the foreign factory floor to the American front porch, was optimized to take full advantage of this streamlined, tax-free pathway into the United States. With the de minimis exemption gone, the process for importing goods into the U.S. has fundamentally changed. Effective immediately, all commercial packages, regardless of their value, are subject to U.S. duties, taxes, and fees. This means that an item you order for $20 will now go through a customs process similar to that of a large commercial shipment. For packages sent via commercial carriers like FedEx, UPS, and DHL, which handle about 95% of these parcels, this requires the filing of formal or informal entry documents. The importer, which in many cases will be the consumer, must pay any applicable tariffs based on the item's type and country of origin. The new rules create a two-tiered system for packages arriving through international postal services, like your country's national mail carrier, for a 6-month transition period. Until February 28, 2026, foreign postal shippers have a choice. They can opt to pay what is called an ad valorem tax, which is a percentage of the package's declared value. This rate will vary depending on the product and where it's from. Alternatively, they can choose to pay a specific duty, which is a flat rate per item. This flat fee can range from $80 to $200, a steep price for a low-cost item. After this 6-month period, only the value-based ad valorem tax option will remain. So, who pays these new costs? Ultimately, the bill will be passed on to the American consumer. Some foreign retailers may choose to include these duties and taxes in the upfront price of the product, a system known as delivered duty paid. This would mean higher prices at checkout, but no surprise fees later. In other cases, the shipping carrier may pay the fees on your behalf and then bill you for them before delivering your package. This could lead to unexpected costs and delays if you are not prepared to pay. The days of seamless, cost-free international deliveries are over. Consumers must now account for these new taxes. This new system requires a significant increase in paperwork and digital documentation. Every package will need to be properly declared, its contents and value accurately reported, so that customs officials can assess the correct amount of duty. This adds a layer of complexity and potential delay to the shipping process. It also places a greater burden on foreign sellers to comply with U.S. customs regulations, even for very small sales. The simple act of mailing a t-shirt or a phone case to a customer in the U.S. has now become a formal international trade transaction, with all the accompanying bureaucratic requirements. While generating revenue is definitely a significant part of this policy change, the Trump administration has emphasized that its primary goals are centered on security and fairness. The White House has stated that the de minimis exemption had become, well, a deadly loophole that was being exploited by criminals and foreign adversaries. A top priority here is to combat the trafficking of illegal drugs, particularly synthetic opioids like fentanyl. Officials have pointed to data showing that a vast amount of these dangerous substances enter the country in small, hard-to-trace packages that previously bypassed rigorous inspection. By forcing all packages into the formal customs process, the government aims to gain better visibility and control over what is crossing our borders. Another major objective is to crack down on the flood of counterfeit goods and pirated products. The administration argues that the de minimis rule made it far too easy for sellers, primarily from China, to ship fake products directly to American consumers. These items not only infringe on the intellectual property of American companies, but can also pose some serious health and safety risks. In 2024 alone, de minimis shipments were linked to 97% of all intellectual property seizures, totaling 31 million counterfeit items. By closing this loophole, the administration intends to protect American brands, inventors, and most importantly, consumers from substandard and often dangerous fake goods. Protecting American jobs and businesses is another cornerstone of this policy. U.S. retailers have long complained that the de minimis exemption created an unfair competitive landscape. American stores that import goods in bulk have to pay tariffs, but foreign e-commerce giants could avoid those same taxes by shipping small packages directly to consumers. This allowed them to undercut domestic prices. By ensuring that all imports are subject to the same duties, the administration aims to level the playing field. The goal is to encourage manufacturing and retail within the United States, and to stop a system that effectively subsidized foreign competitors at the expense of local businesses. Finally, the policy is part of a broader strategy to combat what the administration calls transshipment. This is a tactic where goods from one country, like China, are sent through a third country to disguise their true origin and avoid tariffs. By applying the new rule to every country, it becomes much harder to use nations like Mexico or Vietnam as pass-throughs. The administration believes this comprehensive approach is necessary to make its trade policies effective. Peter Navarro, a key trade advisor, has been vocal in calling the exemption a major vulnerability. The stated goal is a secure and fair trade system that prioritizes American interests above all else. To truly understand the impact of ending the de minimis exemption, we really need to look at the staggering numbers involved. The use of this duty-free provision has just exploded over the past decade. Back in 2014, about 140 million de minimis packages entered the United States. Fast forward to 2024, and that number skyrocketed to an incredible 1.36 billion shipments. And these weren't just letters or documents, they were packages filled with consumer goods. In 2023 alone, nearly 1.4 billion parcels, worth an estimated $64 billion, came into the country without any duties being paid, representing a massive volume of unregulated and untaxed commerce. The new policy is expected to have a dramatic effect on government revenue. According to official projections, closing this loophole could generate up to $10 billion in new tariff revenue every year. This is definitely not a small sum. For context, this change comes at a time when U.S. customs duties have already reached historic highs, surpassing $100 billion in a fiscal year for the first time ever this summer. In the months leading up to this global change, monthly tariff revenues were already setting records, hitting $28 billion in July. The Congressional Budget Office has estimated that these tariff policies could collectively reduce federal deficits by as much as $4 trillion over the next 10 years. We already have a preview of what to expect from the earlier, more limited action taken against China and Hong Kong. When the de minimis exemption was removed for those two regions in May, the effects were immediate and significant. The number of daily shipments from China dropped from around 4 million to about 1 million. This didn't just stop packages, it started generating money. In the few months since that change was implemented, the US has already collected over $492 million in additional duties on packages from China and Hong Kong that would have previously entered for free. This really demonstrates the direct financial impact of the policy. However, the numbers also point to a potential cost for American households. While the government gains revenue, consumers are the ones who will ultimately pay these new taxes. The Tax Foundation, which is an independent policy group, has projected that these tariffs could amount to an average tax increase of $1,304 per household in 2025, rising to $1,588 in 2026. This highlights the central trade-off of the policy. The government collects more money to fund its priorities and protect domestic industry, but families may see their purchasing power decrease as the prices of many imported goods rise. The scale of the change is measured not just in billions of packages, but in dollars and cents for every family. For the average American shopper, the most immediate and noticeable effect of this new rule will be on your wallet. The era of scoring ultra-cheap deals from international websites is likely coming to an end. That $15 shirt or $25 phone charger you used to order from an overseas seller will now have duties and taxes added to its cost. Some experts predict that prices for certain goods could rise by as much as 50%. You may also face a choice at checkout: pay a higher upfront price that includes these fees, or pay a lower initial price and get a separate bill from the shipping company before your package is released. Either way, the final cost will be higher. Small businesses in the US that rely on imported materials or products will face a new set of challenges. An artisan who makes jewelry using beads sourced from India, or a small electronics repair shop that orders components from Asia, will now have to pay duties on these small, essential shipments. This will increase their cost of doing business, forcing them to either absorb the cost and reduce their profits, or pass the higher prices on to their customers. This could make it harder for small American entrepreneurs to compete, as their supply chains become more expensive and complicated to manage. Large American retailers, on the other hand, may see this as a positive development. Companies like Gap Incorporated have publicly supported the elimination of the de minimis rule, arguing that it levels the playing field. For years they've had to compete with foreign e-commerce giants that didn't have to pay the same import tariffs. With this loophole closed, domestic retailers hope that their prices will become more competitive, encouraging consumers to shop at American stores. However, even some large US-based companies like Tapestry, the parent company of Coach, expect a negative impact on profits, as they also rely on complex global supply chains that were streamlined by the old rule. Beyond costs, you should also be prepared for potential shipping delays and reduced product selection. The new requirement for all packages to go through a formal customs process is likely to create backlogs, at least initially. Some international postal services, including those in Switzerland and Japan, have already temporarily paused shipments to the US to figure out the new paperwork. Furthermore, some smaller foreign sellers may decide that the new rules are just too complex and costly, and they may stop shipping to the US altogether. This could mean less variety and fewer choices for American consumers looking for unique international products. To understand the driving force behind this policy, it's really essential to listen to the words of the officials who crafted it. The Trump administration has been unequivocal in its reasoning, framing the end of the de minimis exemption as a decisive action for national security and economic fairness. President Trump's team has consistently argued that the previous rule was an outdated loophole that just no longer served the country's best interests in the modern era of global e-commerce. They have stressed that this is a permanent policy change, not a temporary measure, and that it will not be reversed. The message is one of resolute and long-term strategic adjustment. Peter Navarro, a senior trade advisor to the president and one of the most prominent architects of this policy, has been particularly outspoken. He has repeatedly referred to the $800 duty-free threshold as a deadly loophole that directly facilitated the flow of fentanyl and other illicit drugs into American communities. In a statement released this week, Navarro said, "For too long our trade policy has been exploited by our adversaries. This action closes a dangerous gateway for illegal narcotics, counterfeit junk, and pirated goods, while ensuring that foreign companies play by the same rules as American businesses. This is about protecting our people and our prosperity." The White House has also released official statements highlighting the broad goals of the policy. A press release from earlier today emphasized that the move is designed to combat drug trafficking, put a stop to intellectual property theft, generate significant new revenue, and create American jobs. The administration's narrative connects the dots between trade policy and kitchen table issues like public safety and employment. Officials argue that by making it more difficult and expensive to ship illicit goods, and by leveling the playing field for domestic manufacturers, this policy will ultimately make the country safer and more prosperous for working families. Furthermore, the administration has made it clear that this is part of a larger, comprehensive trade strategy. The initial move to close the loophole for China and Hong Kong was presented as the first step, and this global expansion is the logical conclusion. The official position is that a piecemeal approach is just insufficient, as bad actors can simply reroute their shipments through other countries. By applying the rule globally, the administration aims to create a secure and uniform system for all imports. The message from the president's team is clear. The era of unchecked, duty-free packages is over, and a new era of enforced fair trade has begun. As we look ahead, it's clear that the end of the de minimis exemption brings a mix of potential benefits and drawbacks. On one hand, the arguments from the administration present a compelling case for the change. The potential to significantly curb the flow of illegal drugs like fentanyl and to seize millions of counterfeit products at the border represents a major potential win for public health and safety. If the new system works as intended, it could make our communities safer and protect consumers from dangerous and shoddy goods, which is a powerful argument in favor of the policy. From an economic perspective, the benefits include a substantial increase in government revenue, projected at up to $10 billion annually, which can be used to reduce the federal deficit or fund other national priorities. The policy is also designed to help American businesses. By forcing foreign e-commerce giants to pay the same tariffs as domestic retailers, the change could level the competitive playing field, potentially boosting sales for U.S. companies and protecting American jobs. For those who believe in prioritizing domestic industry and enforcing trade rules strictly, this move is a logical and necessary step to bolster the American economy. However, the downsides are equally significant and will be felt directly by millions of Americans. The most immediate and widespread negative effect will be higher prices for consumers. The cost of many imported goods will rise, reducing the purchasing power of American families. This amounts to a tax increase for households that have come to rely on affordable international e-commerce. In addition to higher prices, consumers are likely to face longer shipping times as packages navigate a more complex customs system, and they may find that some international products are no longer available for purchase in the U.S. at all. In summary, this is a landmark change with far-reaching consequences. It marks a fundamental shift away from a policy of streamlined, low-cost global e-commerce toward one that prioritizes security, revenue, and domestic competition. As a consumer, you should be prepared for higher costs and potential delays when shopping from international sellers. For the country, this policy represents a major gamble, that the benefits of increased safety, a fairer market for U.S. businesses, and billions in new revenue will outweigh the costs of higher prices and reduced choice for American shoppers. The full impact of this decision will unfold in the months and years to come, reshaping how America does business with the world.